And we are live. Thank you for tuning in to the Ace Capone Show. I am your host, Ace Capone. If you like the content, please hit the like button down below. Please subscribe. And if you want to contribute to the station, to the channel, go ahead and look into the description. It has my PayPal and my Cash App. And also, I'm on Truth Social and on Rumble. And please follow me on those platforms as well. I like to get started. It's hard to find credible um, information. If you're going to talk about an issue, you should also be able to bring forth um, uh, valid information. And every time I go out to find content, there's nothing but liberal perspectives. It's like you are flooded, inundated with nothing but radical liberal perspectives. There's no free press in this country. We have government so called journalism, and it's all pro Democrat. If you see anything about a conservative or a so-called Republican, because they're not the same thing. A Republican is not necessarily a conservative. And when you go out and you look on these news feeds, it's nothing but negativity about anyone who has an R behind their name. There's no good or feel good um, stories about Republicans unless you're selling out the Republican Party. This is why you have people like Anna Navarro and Steve, and you have people like Michael Steele and all of these rhinos and Chris Christie, all these fraudulent Republicans who are nothing but Democrats who wear uh, a Republican veneer. These people are um, they're snakes. They're Trojan horses. They say, "Oh, I'm a Republican or I'm a conservative," but you never hear them supporting anything the Republican Party is endorsing. They don't hold conservative values. They support everything that the Democrat Party supports. These guys do not represent the Republican Party. So, what we do have today is almost a one party government. You have people who claim to be Republicans, but they vote with the Democrats. They claim to be Republicans, but they have no morals. There's nothing conservative about these people who are calling themselves conservatives or Republicans in the media. There are some people who are conservative who don't get airtime. And if they do get airtime, they're beating the liberals up. Um, but today I wanted to go over three articles that I found, and I'm going to read them, but also I'm going to go over them. But I like to point out the flaws that I see in these articles. I'm going to give you articles, unlike other people. Me, when I'm giving you something, it's like I hear other guys like to quote CNN, they quote MSNBC, and they'll give you their videos, and they'll say, "Oh, this is what they are saying over here at Communist News Network, or the Marxists over at MSNBC." But they never tell you where these people are lying. They'll give you their story, and that's about where it ends. They don't say, "Hey, this is where the lie is." This is how they're distorting the facts. So even when they're quoting people, they're giving you their version of the truth. So basically, they're dragging you into the fray, into the lie. So, but that guy from North Korea, the black gentleman who ran across the border, he's he's been returned, and The guy's name is Private Travis King. He crossed the border from South Korea into North Korea willfully and without authorization through the joint security area at Panmunjom. I think I said that right. Panmunjom on July 18th, according to the U.S. Army. My question is, why did this guy flee? Some people said, well, he was going to be uh, prosecuted uh, for, I guess he assaulted someone uh, in Korea. It says here that uh, King crossed the border after skipping out on a flight to Fort Bliss, Texas, where he was set to face punishment on assault charges in Korea. Guess he's got a little bit of that mama spirit in him over there attacking people, letting his emotions get the better of him. Um, North Korean authorities transferred King to China with the help of the Swedish government. U.S. officials credited China with playing a constructive role in facilitating his transfer out of the PRC. China gets a guy out of Korea for America. Huh. To me, that's a red flag. I thought the Chinese were our enemies, but they're working to get someone out of Korea, North Korea, for America. If that sounds good to you and sounds right to you, then okay. But for me, I'm saying, well, what did you do for China to get this man out of Korea? Well, Joe Biden probably, sold his soul some more or sold us some more to the Chinese to get this guy out. Because if this guy ran into North Korea, uh, he didn't want to come back. North Korean state media, sort of like what we have here, announced the decision to expel King on Wednesday ahead of U.S. officials' comments. The U.S. officials said they had learned in early September through Swedish diplomats that North Korea officials wanted to release King. U.S. officials said that no concessions have been made to North Korea for King's relief. Stop that right there. When they tell you that there are no concessions, you better believe there were some concessions and that King was very happy to return. Hmm. CNA released statements that claimed King had cited racism in the U.S. and the Army as reasons for fleeing. That's kind of like contradicting yourself. If racism in the US and in the Army was why you fled, then why would you want to return? And I think any person who lives in America who's running around claiming that America is racist, well, how is it racist? You're free to do whatever you choose. And then the Army is racist? I don't think the Army harbors racism. The Army wants people who are capable of doing their job and who will defend the country. If you are practicing racism in a military, you won't have a cohesive unit. Now, if you say, well, maybe people are slow to move up the ranks, that may be bias. Bias. That may exist. I don't know. I'm not in the military. But I can tell you, there are a lot of unqualified people moving up the ranks, and they're not white. So if you're telling me that there is racism in the military, then how are all these people getting moved up the ranks who aren't really deserving? I saw Joe Biden appoint some females in the military and move them up the ranks by putting them over vessels. But no one yelled racism on that. When people who are unqualified are moved into positions of power, no one says a word. They just say, okay, fine. take your tokens, and they move on as best they can. Travis King confessed that he illegally intruded into the territory of the DPRK as he harbored ill feelings against inhuman maltreatment. Inhuman, he says, and racial discrimination within the U.S. Army and was disillusioned about the unequal U.S. society. So you run to North Korea because it's so equal? Woo! This guy's it. You know what? Either they're lying on this guy or this guy is totally delusional. He has no ability to be self-aware of where he actually is. You think they're fair in North Korea? I don't think the word fair even resides in North Korea. And you're going to run there saying you're disillusioned with against inhuman maltreatment? Inhuman maltreatment. You know, the military is voluntary. I guess he forgot that. You volunteered to go. No one forced you. You decided to go. So all of a sudden it's maltreatment, inhuman. If there was inhuman maltreatment, people would be jumping out of the military like rats on a sinking ship, but they're not. There have been thousands upon millions of people who have served our country with respect, who have sacrificed their lives for this country. And for people like this coward who runs across a border to a country with a dictator talking about inhuman maltreatment and racial discrimination. I don't think North Korea has very many black people there. About the unequal U.S. society. King had been considered AWOL by the Army since July 18th, when he dashed across the border between South Korea and North Korea inside the Joint Security Area. The U.S. did not declare King to be a prisoner of war or formal status under U.S. laws that includes significant benefits and protocols for return. The soldier's dash across the border came at the end of a troubled assignment to Korea. He was probably causing trouble. He was released on July 10 after 2 months in South Korea in a South Korean jail on charges of assaulting a South Korean national. On the day he fled, King was scheduled to fly to Fort Bliss, Texas, where he was expected to face judicial punishment. However, officials later pieced together after being taken to the airport, he skipped out on his flight, joining an orientation group that traveled to Panmunjom. There, he sprinted across the border where he was quickly arrested by North Korean troops. Panmunjom is home to the security area, an 800-meter wide complex of buildings along the Korean Demilitarized Zone, overseen by the United Nations Command, which is used for diplomatic purposes. The DMZ separates South Korea from North Korea, which is also known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. U.S. service members crossing into North Korea is rare, but not unheard of. More than 20 soldiers chose to stay in North Korea after the initial armistice that ended the fighting of Korean War, but did not actually end the conflict. Six more were known to have crossed in the decades since. So actually, they don't have too many people running over there to North Korea. They usually stay in South Korea. But this guy was already trouble. He probably, lack of discipline and being controlled by your emotions is a very ugly characteristic to have as a man. In this country, we have too many men who act on emotion. This is why you have cities like New York, Baltimore, Chicago, and Los Angeles with senseless killings of people who shouldn't have guns, but they see guns as a a gun as a status symbol. They don't see a gun as a tool to protect yourself or your family. They see it as, oh, I'm going to intimidate people, or they bully people in the streets. If you're bigger than someone, you will feel as if I'm able to threaten you. And this is what we have. We don't have people who are acting like human beings. A human being lives by rules, and those rules separate us from the animals. But in this society that Democrats and liberals have created and we are fighting against, you have people who say, if you feel it, do it. If you feel like running into a store stealing, go ahead and do it. We won't punish you. It's part of their plan. This young man had a problem with his emotions. He assaulted someone in a foreign land and he was being punished for it. Then he runs away claiming there was inhuman treatment and the US society was racist. I'm sorry, that's a punk's way out. And this guy sounds like a punk. I know people don't like using those words because people are PC. And once again, I'm going to tell you, I'm not PC. I'm going to say what I feel like saying. I'm going to say what the truth is. And I don't care who feels any way about it because the truth doesn't care about your feelings. This man doesn't like authority, he doesn't like rules. And if you get caught up, you make excuses that have nothing to do with your behavior. Assaulting someone in South Korea has nothing to do with the US society. And then you're going to say inhuman treatment in the military, but the military isn't assaulting you. You're assaulting people. So obviously, you have no self control. If someone was bothering you, you can walk away. If someone was bothering you, you say, "You know what? This person really isn't touching me. This person really isn't doing anything to me. I will let them say what they say and they will go away. Or I will report this person and they will be removed." You're in the military. You're not there by yourself. But he has to deal with his issues. Uh, Speaker Kevin McCarthy is trying to keep his sinking ship together. Um, McCarthy says Biden must tighten border to avert U.S. government shutdown. Now I think Kevin McCarthy is working with a spine. You know, as a Californian, I am kind of ambivalent when it comes to Kevin McCarthy. I think he has good intentions, but when you have a media that wants to make you look like a moron, Kevin has a very hard hill to climb. And this is about what's going on. It's funny because the media is sitting here telling you all about the Republicans and what the Republicans, it tell you bits and pieces about what the Republicans are doing and their judgment on what Republicans are doing, but they never tell you the purpose of the Republicans. The Republicans are trying to stop the the spigot of spending from this Democrat socialism slash Marxist regime. They're trying to ruin our economy so badly that it's irreparable. They're trying to spend us like drunken sailors. They're funding a proxy war with Russia without the authorization of the American people. And he's funding illegals at the expense of the American people. He has an open border that's flooding our country with people who don't have our values, who bring in disease, who bring in drugs, who commit crimes against Americans. They're getting free money, free healthcare, free education, then they're getting free room and board while Americans live on the street. If that is not a poster or a commercial that Republicans should be running, I don't see any Republican ads against Joe Biden and the criminal acts he's committing against this country. I don't see any commercials about people jumping over our borders or busloads or truckloads of people or train loads of people crossing our borders from the Republicans. I don't see anyone talking about how he's fleecing us and funneling money to the Ukraine. There was a report the other day saying that 57,000 employees, government employees of Ukraine are being supported by our tax dollars to keep them paid. So we're holding Ukraine as a welfare state. Billions of our dollars are going to the Ukraine. No one signed up for that. So why are we doing it? Why are we allowing it? Why aren't the people sounding the bell saying, hey, this guy is fleecing us? He's bankrupting us. They're losing the war, and we're sitting here supporting this country as a welfare state. We're building roads there. We're building buildings and schools there while we have nothing. That's like a parent taking food out of their own children's mouth to give it to the neighbors. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to take all your clothes and give it away. I'm going to take the food and give it away. I'm going to take your shoes and give it away. I'm going to give away our car. And we'll just have to make do. And that's Joe Biden and his criminal regime of Dumbocrats destroying America on a daily basis. And the media is complicit. They will not tell you the truth. They are out here being the second arm of the Democrat Party, basically the Baghdad Bob of the Democrat Party. What you see isn't what you see. Oh, Daryl, turn around. There's nothing here to see. That's what they're doing to us. Kevin McCarthy's proposal is not likely to resolve a high-stakes spending battle that could idle hundreds of thousands of federal workers. Stop. These guys want to deflect. They're saying, "Oh my God, you won't get your Social Security. Oh my God, the employee, the federal employees won't get their money. Oh, what's going to happen? To insignificant things. They want to appeal to you on an emotional level, but the long game is that it's hurting the country. The more this man is able to spend, he's flooding our country with people who should not be here, who are living off of the government teat. And they're saying nothing about it. They're giving you fluff. They're throwing up nonsense. They're not telling you the full story. The Republicans are trying to save this country while Joe Biden is trying to burn it down. And the media is helping them because they're saying, oh, no, this man is competent. Oh, it's about the Ukraine and democracy, when democracy doesn't even exist in the Ukraine. And I told you before, this guy is over here stifling free speech. He's stopping free elections. He is a tyrant. Zelensky is a monster in the Ukraine. But they won't tell you that. They also forget to tell you that the Nazis are alive and well in the Ukraine. Where are all the people who like to yell anti-Semitism? Because they're not yelling it now at the Ukraine. Where were all these people when Zelensky showed up yelling anti-Semit anti-Semitic. He has a whole Nazi battalion, the Azovs, and they say, "Oh no, no, they're not Nazis." Yes, they are. They will tell you themselves they are Nazis. And where's the media coverage of this? But yeah, they can yell everyone else is a Nazi, but when the real Nazi that are there, they have nothing to say. This media is dysfunctional. It is dysfunctional. It's criminal in its behavior. It's toxic in what it spreads. It's divisive because all it does is divide the country. The media should be banned until you can get a media that wants to tell the truth. They should punish this media for its lies and distortions. There should be laws made against the media that says if you're spreading lies, if you're pushing propaganda, you will be fined. And how do you prove they're pushing propaganda? Look here, if you're biased and you're not telling both sides, if you're sitting here with a slant, you can tell if you're listening to MSNBC or MSNBC or even Fox News, because Fox News is nothing but CNN part 2, 2.0. They're biased. They omit information. If you're omitting information, you should be fined. It's like the Russia hoax. They didn't tell you that the Clintons paid for it, that the Democrats were behind it, and they used that fake dossier to get a warrant. They didn't tell you that. That would have been totally different if you would have told the American public that, hey, the Democrats got a fake dossier to get to obtain a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. And people would have said, oh, that's a criminal, that should be considered a criminal act. But they didn't. They left that part out. They only talked about the dossier. So you are either going to give full disclosure of a story or you won't present that story. And if you sit back and omit a story, you will be fined as well, because now you're trying to hide facts, like the Hunter Biden laptop. And you claimed it to be Russian disinformation. But now you have a crackhead out here trying to sue people for the information on that laptop that wasn't his. It's laughable, and the media should be held accountable for the lie that they pushed onto the American public. And all of the social media platforms should be held accountable as well, because they hid the information at the request of the FBI. And right now, the Senate is preparing to vote on a bipartisan spending bill that will keep the government operating after current money runs out at midday on Saturday, giving negotiators more time to agree on a full year spending numbers. McCarthy, meanwhile, is readying a stopgap spending bill that will restart construction on the U.S. border wall, a signature policy of former president. They are trying to deflect. There is a crisis at the border. Joe Biden has invited people to come here, and and his regime has informed people to claim refugee status. There's no much such thing as a person wanting asylum anymore. Everyone is a refugee. So you have a bunch of people with false claims of refugee status coming here, getting free room and board, 3 hots and a cot, and they're getting money, they're getting education, they're getting health care on day one. It's it's not sustainable, people. We cannot allow this to continue. McCarthy, meanwhile, is writing a stopgap that would restart construction of Mexican border wall, a signature policy of former President Donald Trump, and tighten immigration policies. These policies are certain to be rejected by Biden in the Senate. Good. Let them explain to the American people why they want the border to remain open and why they want to keep funding illegals at will at the expense of the American people. So now Kevin is playing chess. Make them explain to the American people without this fake media. Force them to say, it's the government with free spending or is security of the American people? And I think the American people are going to choose security over spending. Shut this government down because you have a bunch of irresponsible idiots who aren't capable of uh, executing their office, and they're destroying America. To keep the government open, if the president is willing to change part of his plan along this border, we can fund this government going forward, McCarthy told reporters. Let's do something on the border. Keep the government open and show this nation we can do it right and solve the rest of our problems as we go. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers would be furloughed, and a wide range of services from economic data releases to nutrition benefits will be suspended beginning. So, you know what? Who cares? Who cares? And it's a, in Washington, the National Zoo says it will have to curtail its farewell party for three giant pandas before they return to China. So what? What does that have to do with the price of rice? I'm only concerned about America, and the media is throwing you fluff. They're not telling you the story. And it says that Trump is cheering on the shutdown talk. Of course he is, because it's better to shut this government down and right now and to get everything right than to sit here and to keep spending and where you are going to hurt the economy later. Oh, trust me, you're going to pay. It's better to stop the bleeding now than allow these people to spend freely and harm the economy more. He's not going to stop funding his fake war. He's not going to stop funding the illegals. He's not going to stop causing harm to the economy by rising gas prices, which means that causes more people to suffer, which means food is going to go up. And they'll come back and say, oh, Trump only wants to give tax breaks to the rich. Then what is the rich? From what they claim, it's people making $200,000. Well, no, it doesn't, because the middle class is being beaten up by the Democrats. Because when you can't buy groceries, when you can't afford a home, that hurts everyone. Has nothing to do with the rich. And this fake story about the rich, who do you think I don't see poor people employing anyone. So there's no such thing as the rich and the poor. That's a liberal uh, straw man. If you start a business and it takes off, you may become rich. Does that mean that, oh my God, you're not paying your fair? Of course, you're going to pay your fair share. You have to pay taxes on your business and the income you generate. You're also producing jobs, which means you have buildings, you have stock to maintain, and they're sitting here saying that's nothing. These are people who've never had a business in their lives. And these are the people who are telling you it's the rich versus the poor. It's not rich versus the poor because the poor won't have jobs if the rich aren't producing them. How can you have a job if there's no company to give you a job? How can you have a job when there's no small business person to produce the job? It makes no sense. And people sit here and they try to rationalize the BS that the liberals spew at you. Socialists hate success. They love taking the money from those who are successful. But once all those people who are drained of their money can no longer give you money, they start to feed on themselves. It will be the poor against the poor. There will be categories of poor. And the government will have all the money because they're going to strip you of your money. So you will go to work for free. or you won't have a job at all because there's nobody to give you a job. And when there are no jobs and there's no more money, the government goes into chaos and society goes into chaos. And that is what liberalism does. It's nothing but planned chaos. This is why they have people in the inner cities going out to the suburbs, stealing and trying to run businesses out of business. That's why CVS is closing their doors. Target is closing their doors. There's some Walmarts closing their doors. Bed Bath and Beyond closing their doors. There are corporations closing their doors all over America today because of theft, because of inflation. The cost to do business is getting out of control. And they're sitting here telling you that inflation is all in your mind. That's liberalism. That's the Democrat Party. Lastly, we have Donald Trump, one of the greatest presidents in our time. He went over to talk to the auto workers and promising that he will take care of the problem with the unions. Who would you trust to take care of the problem with the unions? A guy who's been a politician his whole life, who appoints people like Buttigieg and Kamala Harris, the most dumbest people on the planet, and everyone else like Blinken, excuse me, who get up in front of Congress and tell you that they don't know any answers to the questions that are being asked of them. You have the most incompetent people in government who are clearly allowing the country to fall apart. I've never seen America so badly run. And all they can say is Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. Donald Trump's bad. How? How is he bad? Let's not talk about the failures of Joe Biden. Let's just say that Donald Trump is bad. This is the media. Let's not talk about the facts. Let's just say Donald Trump is bad. He's a racist. He's a misogynist. He's been convicted of sexual assault because we set him up to be that way. Who's telling the story and how they slant the facts. And I believe when Trump gets into office, he needs to day one attack all of his enemies. Attack them all. He should have a plan ready. He should have executive orders ready to go on day one. Just as Joe Biden came in and stopped drilling and signed off on the Russian pipeline and all this other nonsense to destroy our country, Trump should have day one a long list of executive orders to get this country running and get a Congress that he's able to work with to set legislation on immigration and be able to pass it, to defund the FBI, restructure the DOJ, shut down the IRS, and to also fund more ICE agents to get people out of our country. He needs to stop these states who are funding illegals, people who are giving them driver's licenses that are trying to allow them to vote. And he needs to shut down the voting to one day. And the Republicans need to be in office. There's no more of this, oh, well, I'm going to vote Republican this way and Democrat. No, Democrats need to go. They have already shown you that they can't be trusted. Donald Trump will attempt to woo blue-collar workers in Michigan in an intensifying political tug of war with Joe Biden. There's no tug of war with Joe Biden. Who writes this nonsense? Yahoo News is so they're not credible whatsoever. There's no tug of war. Joe Biden didn't go down there to say anything. He read from a teleprompter. People probably just laughed at the guy. He has no personality. He has no support from the American people. He's at 30%, and I'd even doubt the 30%. And if he went to go talk to the people, they were forced to be there. Tug of war with Biden the day after the sitting president visited a picket line to declare support for a trade union strike. He created the problem. He's trying to force these automakers to abandon normal cars for electric vehicles that no one wants to buy. Talk about fascism. That is fascism at its worst. You're going to force the American people into products they don't want. Take away their choices. You get what the government says you get. That is fascism. All this junk that you're on, Trump's a fascist. You don't know what fascism is. Of course, Trump isn't forcing anything on anyone. But you will sit here and allow Joe Biden to say, you either get the jab or you will lose your job. If that's not fascism, hmm, I think I think people should educate themselves instead of listening to the media and also trying to get their information from Dumbocrats because they love to project their deviltry onto other people. They'll say that their enemies are doing it when they're doing it. They love to claim other people are doing things without any evidence while they're doing it themselves. Targeting working class voters in key battleground, the former president will attempt to upstage Tuesday's appeal by Biden to the union members on the front line of the United Auto Workers strike, which is turning into a proxy struggle for next year's presidential election. Trump will address about 500 workers, including UAW members at Drake Enterprises, a non unionized car parts manufacturer in Macomb County, a few miles from where Biden spoke to a striking employees picketing a Ford facility. Probably a handful of people. Because no one wants to hear Joe Biden because he has nothing to say. And every time he opens his mouth, he's telling lies. That man is a chronic liar. And the media lies for him and with him. Wednesday's speech is time to coincide with the second Republican primary debate at the Ronald Reagan Library in Simi Valley, California, which Trump is avoiding to cement his self-anointed status. Self-anointed status? The man has 73% of the vote of support. It's not self-appointed. I love how they just love to use words and to try to paint things. The people want Trump. The same guy they say is unelectable. The people sure do want him overwhelmingly. And they don't want to live. They don't want to recognize reality. They're saying, we want to give you what we want to give you. And if you don't take what we give you, something's wrong with you. Fascism again. Trump has emitted a sympathetic feeling towards workers striking against Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis without explicitly endorsing their demand for a 40% raise. Shorter working hours and better pensions, which polls show a majority of Americans support. Instead, he has accused UAW's leadership of selling its members down the river and attacked Biden's clean energy policy for incentivizing the three-car giants to convert to manufacturing electric vehicles. They tell you the truth, and then they try to demonize it. I just can't with these stories. People who aren't aware will take this and go, oh my God, Trump is bad for trying to say that these guys are selling them down the road. They join the union. Union is supposed to, the union is selling people out for the Democrats every single election cycle. And trust me, the people aren't voting with their leadership. They're voting the way they want to vote. And most of those people are voting Trump. And they will vote Trump because they understand they need to keep their jobs. And the batteries that supply these cars are made in China. And the argument will be made to these people. I just say, as you look here, you just cannot trust the media. We need to be more steadfast in going out to get information from independent sources and just finding information and reading it properly to say, hey, This is bias. I'll read it, but I'll weed out the nonsense. It's how they word things. It's either you're going to recognize that this is opinion. This is someone's opinion. This isn't based on any fact. It's not a source that they're quoting. When they say many people, that's not a source. That's someone talking out of their backside. But this is what you get. You don't get facts anymore. You get opinion pieces. And those opinion pieces are hurting the fiber of our country. But what do I know? I'm just a guy. Send me drop me a line. Let me know what you think. But right now, this is your boy, Ace Capone, signing off until next time. And as always, peace. And I'm gone.